Hello everybody and welcome to English at Ease. In today's video, we are going to be learning English by hearing about one of the most important and well-known states in the United States, California. Today's video is the first video in a new series I am going to be making on this channel. In this series, we are going to be taking a road trip through the United States. We are going to be visiting each different state in each video and learning a little bit more about that state. We are going to be talking about each individual state's history, their culture, their important places that you might want to visit, as well as some interesting facts about that state. I wanted to start this series by talking about California. The reason why I wanted to start with California is because California is the state where I live. It's the state that I am currently living in right now. It's also the state where I was born, and it's the state I've lived in my entire life. I have never lived in a different state. I've always lived in the state of California. So for that reason, I am very familiar with California. It is my home. I know a lot about California because I've lived here my entire life. Now, if you don't know where California is on the very western part of the United States. It's on the west coast of the United States. So California is next to the Pacific Ocean. California also shares a border with Mexico, with the country directly below, directly southern to the United States. California shares a border with Mexico. You can drive from California to Mexico. Now, California is one of the most important states in the United States. It's one of our most important states because it is so big. California is one of the biggest states in the United States. There is a lot of land in California. It is not small. It is very, very big. Now, not only is California a big state with a lot of land, but California also has a lot of people living in it. California is the most populated state in the United States. There are more people living in California than in any other state in the United States. California has the most people living in it. For this reason, California is one of the most important states in the entire country. Now, I wanted to start this journey through California by talking about California's history. Now, California, like all of the other areas of the United States, was originally lived in by people called Native Americans. These people we call Native Americans. Now, the Native Americans were the people who were living in North and South America, in these two continents, before Europeans came and decided to live here. Before Europeans arrived in North and South America, there were people already living there. There were people who lived in these two continents. These two continents were their homes. And we call these people Native Americans. Now, Native Americans lived throughout all of North and South America. In both continents, there were people living in almost every part of land. Now, California was the exact same way. California was almost completely populated, almost completely lived in by these Native Americans. Now, one difference between the Native Americans living in California and Native Americans living in other parts of the land that we now call the United States is that in California, many of the Native American groups living there spent most of their time fishing. They spent most of their time fishing. Fishing was their way of getting food. It was their way of being able to eat and survive. Because California is right next to the Pacific Ocean was a really good source of food for Native Americans living in California. They could go to the ocean, and they could fish, and they could catch fish, and they could cook them, and they could eat them. So Native Americans living in California mainly ate fish from the Pacific Ocean. That was their main way of finding food to feed their families. Like all Native American groups living in North and South America, in California, life changed very much. It changed a lot for these Native Americans when Europeans arrived. When Europeans came to North and South America, life changed a lot for the Native Americans living in California. Now, the European country that eventually conquered, that eventually took over and ruled over California was Spain. Spain created a very big empire in North and South America. Spain ruled, they controlled almost all of South America. They also controlled almost all of Central America and Mexico as well. Eventually, Spain also took control and started to rule over California, over the Native Americans living in California. Now, Spain wasn't very interested in California. The Spanish didn't think California was a very good place to live. They didn't think it was a good place to live. So they didn't really want to build big cities and spend a lot of money building in California. Instead, they decided to give California to another group so that that group could start to build in California, could start to create towns and cities in California. The King of Spain decided to ask a group called the Franciscans if they would like to come and move to California and live there and start to build in California, to start to build towns and cities there. Now, the Franciscans were a religious group. They were a group of people that were very religious. Their main job in life was to tell people about their religion, to tell people about Catholicism, which was the name of their religion. So when the King of Spain asked these Franciscans if they wanted to move to California and start to build towns and cities there, the Franciscans said yes. The Franciscans said, okay, we will do that. So the Franciscans moved to California and they started to build. They started to build missions throughout California. These missions were like churches. They were like churches where people would go to worship God, to pray. The missions were very similar to churches. Now, the Franciscans were not always very kind to the Native Americans living in California. Sometimes they were very cruel to them. They were not very kind at all. The Franciscans told the Native Americans, they told them, you have to come to the missions and you have to live on this land. You have to live in the missions. The Native Americans were not allowed to leave the missions. They had to stay on the missions. In the missions, the Native Americans were forced. They were forced to learn about Catholicism, to learn about the religion of the Franciscans. They had to worship the God of the Franciscans. They also had to pray in the missions. The Native Americans in the missions also had to act like Spanish people. They had to learn how to be like Spanish people. They weren't allowed to dress like they did before. They had to dress and wear clothing like Spanish people. They also had to practice Spanish holidays and Spanish traditions. They couldn't do the traditions that they had done for many years. They had to start acting like Spanish people. The Franciscans did not like the culture of the Native Americans, and they did not like the religion of the Native Americans. So they basically told the Native Americans, you need to start being more like us. In these missions, the Native Americans were supposed to learn to be more like the Spanish. Now, Spain ruled over California for some time. For some time, Spain was in charge of California, and the Franciscans were building towns and building cities during this time. It was during this time that we see some of the most famous cities in California first start to get created, first start to get built. Some of these cities that were created by the Franciscans are called San Diego and San Francisco, that we will be learning about a little bit further on in this video. Both of these cities were originally created by the Franciscans. Now, eventually, Spain lost control of California. Eventually, Spain did not rule California anymore. This was because in Mexico, the area below, the area south of California, there was a big rebellion. The people of Mexico told Spain, we don't want to be ruled by you anymore. We want to be our own country. They told Spain, we are going to be our own country. Now, Spain did not want this, so the two sides fought a war. They fought a war. Eventually, Mexico won this war. They beat Spain. So Mexico was able to be its own country. Mexico was able to be independent from Spain. Spain wouldn't rule Mexico anymore. Now, Mexico was also able to take California from Spain. So now California did not belong to Spain. Spain did not own California anymore. Now it belonged to Mexico. Mexico owned California. Now, this lasted for a while until the United States took California from Mexico. During this time, the United States was becoming stronger. They were becoming a more powerful country. And they were also starting to gain more land. They were taking more land. And they started to disagree. They started to fight with Mexico about land. There was land that the United States wanted that Mexico also wanted. For this reason, Mexico and the United States fought a war. In this war, the United States was able to beat Mexico. Mexico lost the war to the United States. By winning the war, the United States was able to take some land from Mexico. Some of this land that was taken was California. The United States now owned California. Now, shortly after this war, shortly after the United States took California and started to own California, there was something that happened in California that changed the history of the state. Something that happened in California that has made California the big and strong state that we see today. During this time, gold was discovered in California. Somebody found gold in California. Now, when people started to hear that there was gold to be found in California, people started to think to themselves, maybe I should move to California. Maybe I should go to California and try to find gold there so I can become rich, so I can have lots of money. For this reason, a lot of people from all different parts of the United States and from other parts of the world as well started to come to California to live there and to try to find gold. Now, this was so important for the history and the development of California because now California had a lot more people living in it. There was a lot more people in California, which allowed California to grow. It allowed the state to grow. Shortly after this time, as people were coming to California, cities started to grow. Cities started to get bigger in California. It was during this time that we started to see a lot more cities get built in California. Now, this growth of California has continued even until today. Today, California is the most populated state in the United States. There are more people living in California than in any other state. California also has some of the biggest cities in the entire United States. In fact, California has some of the biggest cities in the entire world. Now that we have talked about and learned about the history of this state, we are going to be talking about some of these cities. Some of these cities that were created in California and have become major cities in the world, have become some of the biggest and most important cities in the entire world. To start, we are going to be talking about a city that is located in the very southern part of California. This city is called San Diego. Now, San Diego is one of the most southern cities in California. In fact, San Diego is so southern, it's so far into the southern part of California that it is actually very close. It's very close to Mexico, to the country that is just below the United States. In fact, if you live in San Diego, you can get in your car and you can drive to Mexico, and it won't take you a very long time. It might take you about 1 hour to get to the border of Mexico, to start entering Mexico. For this reason, San Diego has a very interesting culture. A lot of people from Mexico live in San Diego. A lot of Mexican people live in San Diego. For this reason, San Diego has a very interesting mix of Mexican and American culture. These two cultures have mixed in interesting ways to create a unique San Diego culture. You will find a lot of influence from Mexico if you go to San Diego. For example, if you go to San Diego and you are looking for a place to eat, you are probably going to find a lot of Mexican food. Mexican food is very popular in San Diego. It's maybe the most popular type of food to eat in San Diego. Now, San Diego is mainly famous for its weather and its beaches. San Diego has very good weather. The weather in San Diego is very warm. It's not very cold. If you go to San Diego, you're probably not going to be very cold. It's usually warm there. Because of San Diego's very warm, nice weather, the beaches of San Diego are very popular. In fact, the beaches of San Diego might be the most popular beaches in all of the United States. People go very often to the beaches in San Diego because the weather is so nice, they can spend a whole day sitting and enjoying the beach. A lot of people also like to go into the water to swim. Because the weather is so nice, because it's not very cold in San Diego, the water in the beaches is usually not too cold. You are able to walk into the water, you are able to swim, and you're not going to be too cold. A lot of people also like to surf in the beaches of San Diego. If you come to the beaches of San Diego, you're probably going to see a lot of people surfing. Now, if you are going to visit San Diego, if you are going to come and visit this incredible city, I would personally recommend that you go and see the beaches of San Diego, of course. You have to see the beaches of San Diego. But also, I would recommend that you go and see the San Diego Zoo. There is a very popular zoo in San Diego called the San Diego Zoo. The San Diego Zoo might even be one of the most famous zoos in the entire world. The San Diego Zoo is a very cool place to go to because it is huge. It is very big. You can spend a whole day exploring the San Diego Zoo and looking at all the different animals. It's that big. It's that huge. There are many different types of animals at the San Diego Zoo. Basically, any type of animal that you might want to see, you are probably going to be able to see it in the San Diego Zoo. Now, moving on from San Diego and traveling a little bit up north, we will find another very famous city in California. Maybe even the most famous city in all of the United States. This city is called Los Angeles. Now, Los Angeles is also in the southern part of California. It is more northern than San Diego, but it is still in the southern part of California. In fact, you can drive from San Diego to Los Angeles, and it's going to take some time, but it's not going to take a whole day. It might take you about 2 hours to drive from San Diego to Los Angeles. One of the reasons Los Angeles is so important is because it has a lot of people living there. Los Angeles has the highest population of all of the cities in California. There are more people living in Los Angeles than in any other city in California. Now, Los Angeles is mainly famous. It's mainly known for its entertainment. Los Angeles is the number one city for the film industry. Most of the famous movie and TV show companies are based in Los Angeles. Most of them are in Los Angeles. For example, we see famous film companies like Disney and Warner Bros. Studios in Los Angeles. Now, Los Angeles is also a famous place to film movies. A lot of famous movies and TV shows are based in Los Angeles. A lot of times when you watch a movie, the characters that are in the movie live in Los Angeles. One modern example of this would be the movie La La Land. That was a very popular movie that maybe you have seen. In La La Land, the main character is trying to become an actress in Los Angeles. She's living in Los Angeles and she's trying to become an actress. Somebody who plays a character in shows and in movies. Now, Los Angeles is also very famous for its music industry as well. There is a lot of opportunities in Los Angeles to become famous in the music industry. A lot of people come to Los Angeles to become famous, to become well known. If you are somebody that wants to become an actor, somebody who plays a character in shows or in movies, then Los Angeles is probably the #1 place you can go to become an actor. If you want to become a famous singer or a famous musician, then Los Angeles is one of the best places you can go. Now, if you are going to come and visit Los Angeles, then I would recommend you go to a very famous neighborhood that you have probably heard of in Los Angeles. This neighborhood is called Hollywood. Hollywood is the center of the film industry. It is the most famous place for movies and TV shows. Now, in Hollywood, I would recommend you look for and find the Hollywood sign. And I would also recommend you go to the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which is a place where you can walk and you can look down and you can see stars on the ground. And each of these stars has a name written on it. There's a name written on each of these stars. Each of these names written on the stars is the name of a different person who has become famous, who has become well known in Los Angeles. All of these people are famous actors and famous directors, people who create movies. Now, if we move on from Los Angeles and we move up north along the California coast, we are going to find another incredible city called San Francisco.
I'll see you in my San Francisco. I'll see you in my...
Now, San Francisco is in Northern California. It's in the northern part of California, unlike Los Angeles and San Diego that are in the southern part of California. Now, San Francisco is interesting because it is a very populated city. There are a lot of people living in San Francisco. There are not as many people living in San Francisco as there are in Los Angeles, but there's still a lot of people living in San Francisco. It is the 4th most populated city in California. Although there are a lot of people living in San Francisco is not very big. It is kind of small. It's not a very big city like San Diego and Los Angeles. There's not a lot of land in San Francisco. Because there are so many people living in this small city, because there are so many people who need a place to live in this small city, you will notice when you go to San Francisco that the buildings are very tall. The buildings are very tall in San Francisco because there is not room to build more buildings, and there are so many people who need a place to live that the buildings have to be built very tall. So if you go to San Francisco, it's kind of fun and kind of cool to look up and see all of the big, tall buildings around you. Now, San Francisco is also known for its cool weather. It's not very warm like San Diego. San Francisco is a little bit colder. So if you go to San Francisco, you might want to bring a jacket. You might want to cover yourself in a jacket because it's a little bit cold in San Francisco. Now, if you are going to come and visit San Francisco, then I would recommend you look for the Golden Gate Bridge. that is one of, if not the most famous thing to see, the most famous sight in the entire city. This bridge is very beautiful and very incredible to see. I would also recommend that you come to a famous neighborhood in San Francisco called Chinatown. As you may have noticed from the name Chinatown, this neighborhood is very closely related to China, to the country in Asia called China. The reason for this is because a lot of people throughout many years have moved from China to San Francisco. There are a lot of Chinese people living in San Francisco. Most of the people who come from China and move to San Francisco move to this neighborhood. They move to Chinatown. For this reason, there are a lot of people in Chinatown who are Chinese. There are a lot of Chinese people living in this neighborhood. This has made Chinatown a very interesting place to see because as you walk around Chinatown, you are going to notice, you are going to see the influence of Chinese culture in the neighborhood. You are going to see buildings that look Chinese. You are going to see stores, you're going to see shops where you can buy things, and the items they sell, the things they sell, are usually souvenirs from Chinese culture. You are also going to be able to find a lot of Chinese food in Chinatown. If you are in Chinatown and you are hungry, you are going to be able to find a lot of really good traditional Chinese food. Now, Chinatown is also the place where the fortune cookie was invented. If you've ever gone to a Chinese restaurant to eat food, maybe they've given you a little cookie that you can open. You can break this cookie open, and there is a little note that has been written inside that is supposed to tell you, it tells you the future. It tells you what's going to happen to you later on in your life. A lot of people think that fortune cookies were created in China, but they actually weren't. They were created in Chinatown, San Francisco. Chinese people who came and moved to this neighborhood decided to make fortune cookies in San Francisco. Now that we have covered these three very famous cities in California, now that we've learned about these incredible cities, and we know a little bit more about some interesting places that you can go and see if you visit them, I wanted to talk about some other interesting facts about the state of California. One interesting thing to know about the state of California is that this state has more national parks than any other state in the United States. A national park is a place with a lot of natural beauty. It's a place where you can go to see nature, to see mountains, to see beaches, to see forests. You can also see a lot of interesting animals in these national parks. Now, California has created a lot of national parks to encourage, to get people to come and see the nature, to explore and experience the nature. And also to make sure these places are not destroyed, to make sure they are not ruined, to make sure the nature is protected, to make sure it's kept safe. Now, California has created more national parks than any other state in the United States. California has created 9 national parks. There are 9 national parks that you can visit and explore in California. And each one is unique and interesting in its own way. The state with the second most national parks is Alaska, which has 8 national parks. After Alaska, the third state with the most national parks is Utah, which only has 5 national parks. So in comparison to most of the states in the United States, California has a lot of national parks. Another interesting fact about California is that the flag of California has a very interesting history. If you look at the flag of California, you are going to notice a bear at the center of the flag. There's a bear at the center of the flag. The bear that's shown at the center of the flag is a grizzly bear. Grizzly bears are a type of bear that you can find in North America. They are a very big bear. The strange thing about this, the thing that's a little bit weird about this, about seeing the grizzly bear on the California flag, is that there are actually no grizzly bears in California. If you come to California, you are not going to be able to find a grizzly bear. If you come to California and you explore our national parks, you are maybe going to be able to find a black bear, which is another type of bear, but you are not going to be able to find a grizzly bear. Black bears usually have darker fur. Their fur is not as light as grizzly bears, and they are much smaller. Grizzly bears are much bigger. So you might ask the question, you might think, why is there a grizzly bear on the California flag? Well, the reason for this is because there used to be grizzly bears in California. In the past, there was a lot of grizzly bears in California. Unfortunately, all of them have been hunted and killed. So there are no more grizzly bears in California. But the picture of the grizzly bear on California's flag has remained. It has stayed to this day. And it's a reminder, it reminds us of our past, of a different time when we did have this beautiful animal living in California. Now, on the topic of animals, there is another interesting fact about California that might blow your mind. If you are driving along the California coast, near the ocean, if you're driving there, you might see zebras walking along the California coast. Yes, I did not say that wrong. You might see zebras along the California coast. For people who do not know about this, when they drive along the California coast and see the zebras, sometimes they are very surprised because they wouldn't expect to see zebras in California. Most of us probably know that zebras only live in Africa. They only live in the continent of Africa. So when you drive along the California coast, you might ask, why are there zebras here? Well, there's an interesting story behind this. In the past, there was a man who lived in California named William Randolph Hearst, and he was very rich. He had a lot of money, and he used his money to build a zoo. He wanted to build a zoo, and he wanted to bring animals from different parts of the world. So he brought zebras from Africa to live in his zoo. Now, this was all happening during a very difficult, a very hard time in U.S. history called the Great Depression. During this time, people were losing money. People did not have as much money as they used to. William Randolph Hearst was also losing money during this time. He did not have as much money, so he was not able to spend any more money to build his zoo. He had to stop building his zoo. Some of the animals he was able to sell to different places. But during this time, the zebras that were in his zoo escaped. They were able to get out of his zoo. They were able to leave, and they started to walk along the California coast. And over time, the zebras started to make babies, and more and more and more zebras started to get born. So now today, if you come and you drive along the California coast, you might see some of these zebras from this abandoned zoo, from this zoo that was abandoned, that doesn't exist anymore. Now, another interesting fact about California is that California is a very rich state. It is a state with a lot of money. California has more money than any other state in the United States. Some of the reasons for this is because California has a lot of big companies in the state. A lot of the biggest companies in the world are in California. For example, technology companies, companies that make technology like phones and like computers, are in California. Many of them are in California. Some famous examples are Apple and Google, which are both in California. Another reason why California is so rich is because of the entertainment industry, like we had talked about before when we were talking about Los Angeles. All of the films and movies that are made in California bring a lot of money. They make a lot of money for the state of California. California also experiences a lot of tourism. There is a lot of tourism to California. A lot of people come to visit California. When people want to go on a trip and they want to visit the United States, a lot of people choose to go to California, which helps California make even more money. In fact, California has so much money, California is so rich, that it is actually richer than almost all of the countries in the entire world. California is richer than most countries. In fact, if California was its own country, if California was not part of the United States, but if it was its own country, it would be the fourth richest country in the world. It would be the country with the fourth most amount of money. The only countries that have more money, the only countries that have more money than California are the United States, China, and Germany. Recently, California passed Japan in regards to money, in regards to how much money they have. Just recently, California now has more money than the country Japan. California is now richer than Japan. Now, I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about California, about this incredible state. And I hope you also learned some places that you can go to if you decide to visit this state. I hope you stay tuned I also hope you were able to get some good English listening practice from hearing about California. Stay tuned for more videos in this series where I will be teaching you about all of the different states in the United States of America. Thank you so much for watching.